Dear friends, welcome to an extraordinary journey through the epic Mahabharata, a narrative that transcends eras and cultures. Here, amidst battles and dialogues of the divine, we'll explore the profound questions of humanity. So, lean in, for the ancient echoes await. The Mahabharata is one of the two major ancient Indian epics, believed to have been composed around 400 BCE. It is an extensive narrative that covers a wide range of topics, including mythology, philosophy, politics, and morality. It may be the longest epic poem ever written, originally written in Sanskrit. Its longest version consists of over 100,000 sloka or over 200,000 individual verse lines, and long prose passages. At about 1.8 million words in total, the Mahabharata is roughly 10 times the length of the Iliad and the Odyssey combined, or about 4 times the length of the Ramayana. It was composed by Sage Vyasa, who is also a major character in the epic. The first section of the Mahabharata states that it was Ganesha who wrote down the text to Vyasa's dictation, but this is still in dispute. Now, without further ado, let the story begin. The Mahabharata begins with the story of Shantanu, king of Hastinapur. He was married to the beautiful Ganga, who was the river goddess in human form, but Shantanu did not know that. She agreed to marry him as long as he never questioned her actions. Over the years they had 7 sons, but Ganga threw each one into the river. Shantanu was distressed, but he kept his promise. Finally, when their 8th son was born, he asked his wife who she really was, and why she had done this. Ganga revealed herself and told that her children had once been celestial beings, but were cursed to become human. She had ended the punishment quickly by drowning him immediately at birth. But since Shantanu had questioned her actions, she left him, along with his last son, whose name was Devabrata. His father, Shantanu, wanted to marry Satyavati, the mother of Vyasa, but the condition of the marriage was that her son would be the king of Hastinapur someday. Hearing this, Devabrata took the terrible vow that he would never marry in his life, for he would remain as a brahmachari, and also would never challenge the claim to the throne. From then on, he was known as Bhishma, the firm. Shantanu married Satyavati, but was shocked about the vow. He blessed Bhishma with the power to choose his day of death. Years later, Queen Satyavati gave birth to 2 sons, Chitrangada and Vichitravaya. However, both sons die prematurely. The sage, Vyasa, impregnates Vichitravaya's wives, Ambika, Ambalika, and a maid. Ambika gave birth to Dritarashtra, born blind, and Ambalika gave birth to Pandu, who was extremely pale. The maid bore a perfect child called Vidur. In the course of time, Pandu ascended the throne, as his elder brother Dritarashtra was blind, and Vidur became the prime minister due to his sagacity and distinguished talent. During the time of Pandu, the kingdom of the curse expanded far and wide. Pandu married Kunti and Madri. Kunti received a boon that allowed her to invoke gods and bear children from them. She gave birth to Yudhishthira, Bhima, and Arjuna. Madri gave birth to Nakula and Sahadeva. Thus, Pandu had 5 sons, and these 5 worthy children of Pandu were called the Pandavas. They grew up strong and well-behaved. They learned the art of war games from their able father Pandu. The sages taught them the teachings of the Vedas. On the other hand, Dritarashtra married Gandhari in an arranged marriage. When Gandhari came to know that her husband is blind, she, as a true wife, sharing the emotions of her husband, bandaged her eyes permanently with a cloth. Gandhari called Veda Vyas and requested him the boon to bear 100 sons and a daughter. Vyasa very kindly agreed, and through his magical powers, Gandhari gave birth to 100 sons of Dritarashtra, along with a daughter, Dushala. Duryodhan was the eldest son, while Dushashan was the second. They were the Kauravas. Years later, Pandu died fulfilling a curse, and Madri, devoted to him, joined him on the funeral pyre. Meanwhile, Dritarashtra became king, despite his blindness. The Pandavas, the sons of Pandu, returned to Hastinapur and joined their cousins, Kauravas, the sons of Dritarashtra. All the cousins, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, grew up together under the direction of their grandfather Bhishma. Kripacharya trained them for wars. In those days, Dronacharya, son of Sage Bharadwaj, was an ideal teacher. He had a son named Ashwathama, whom he loved dearly. Eventually, Drona was appointed as the teacher for the princes. Of all his disciples, Drona loved Arjuna the most. He was most skillful, and Drona promised Arjuna that he would make him the best archer in the world. When the princes had completed their training, grandfather Bhishma arranged for a competition in order to demonstrate their sportsmanship. Various dignitaries were invited to the grand ceremony. Arjuna surprised everyone with his feats of archery. When the tournament was about to complete, Karna arrived on the scene. No one knew that he was Kunti's first son by Surya, the sun god, whom she bore before she married Pandu and abandoned in a basket on the river. However, Karna did not know his real mother, being raised by a charioteer. He challenged Arjuna, but Kripacharya objected as the competition was meant for princes only. At that point, Duryodhan came forward and offered Karna the state of Anga, making him a prince. Karna was as good as Arjuna, and no one could decide the superiority of one over the other. The Pandavas were superior to the Kauravas in every respect, both in strength and intelligence. Bhishma advised Dritarashtra to declare Yudhishthira as the crown prince of Hastinapur, since he was the eldest and was endowed with the fine qualities of a king. But Duryodhan was unhappy, and, out of anger, he planned to kill the Pandavas so that he can ascend the throne of Hastinapur. So, when Dritarashtra requested Pandavas to visit the annual Pashupati fair in Varnavath, a place far away from Hastinapur, Duryodhan secretly ordered a special palace, made of highly inflammable materials, for Pandavas to burn them alive while sleeping. According to the plan, the palace would be put on fire at night. However, Vidur, who was the uncle of the Pandavas, and their well-wisher, came to know of Duryodhan's heinous plan and alerted Yudhishthira. Vidur sent a miner to secretly dig an escape tunnel from the palace, through which the Pandavas escaped into the forest. Everyone thought that the Pandavas were burnt in the fire. Soon, the news reached Hastinapur. Dritarashtra and Bhishma were shocked to hear the news. For months afterward, Pandavas lived hiding in the forest. One night, as Bhima kept watching while the others were asleep, there appeared a demon named Hidimba. Assuming the form of a beautiful woman, she fell madly in love with Bhima. Bhima later fought and killed her evil brother. Following a short ceremony, Hidimba and Bhima got married. In the course of time, a child was born who was named Ghatothkacha. He grew up in no time, and like his father, became a great warrior. After some time of hiding in the forest, when Pandavas began to plan to leave the forest, Vyasa arrived. On the advice of Vyasa, Kunti and her 5 sons went to a nearby town, called Ekachakra. They stayed with a Brahmin family, disguised as Brahmins. They lived on begging alms and chanting prayers. During this stay, Bhima killed Bakasur, who used to kill the people at random and destroy the village. While staying at Ekachakra, Pandavas heard that Drupad, the king of Panchal, was holding a swayambara, forgetting his beautiful daughter Draupadi married to the best of the princes. It was a royal ceremony where the suitors competed in certain events and the winner got the hand of the princess. Princess Draupadi was extremely special because she was not an ordinary girl. A few years ago King Drupad performed a yagya and was blessed with a boy, Drishtadyumna, and a girl, Draupadi. Both of them were adults when they emerged from the yagya. Draupadi was well known for her stunning beauty. The Pandava brothers also decided to attend the Swayamvara ceremony, disguised as Brahmins. Krishna, the king of Dwarka, was also present as an honored guest. In the hall, a fish was hanging from a pole. The challenge was to hit the fish's eye, while it was revolving on the top side of the pole. But that condition was to not hit the fish directly, but they need to hit the eye of the fish by seeing the reflection of the revolving fish in the water. There was also one problem with a bow because it was a very heavy bow and only fewer people had the ability to lift that bow. The event began and a number of princes came forward and tried, but none of them were successful. Finally, Arjuna, in the disguise of a Brahmin, got up and picked up the bow and arrow. He looked down at the reflection of the fish in water and drew the cord of the bow and shot the arrow. The arrow darted with a twang and pierced the eye of the fish. People could not believe that a Brahmin could master the skill of archery better than any prince could. Duryodhan guessed that the winner must be Arjuna, and the 4 other Brahmins must be the Pandava brothers. He was surprised at how they could escape the fire at Varnavat. The Pandavas returned home with Draupadi as Arjuna's wife. Their mother, Kunti, was waiting for them for their daily collection of alms. Meanwhile, Yudhishthira spoke after reaching home. "Look, mother, what have we brought for you today?" Kunti was inside and did not see Draupadi, so she casually said, "Divide it equally among yourselves." Once spoken, Kunti's words could not be taken back, and so, her dedicated 5 sons had to take Draupadi as their common wife. Soon, news reached Hastinapur. Pandavas proudly returned to Hastinapur along with Kunti and Draupadi. The people of Hastinapur were delighted to see them. Dritarashtra, in consultation with other members of the cabinet, offered Kandavprastha to the Pandavas to settle. In due course of time, Pandavas made Indraprastha as the capital of Kandaprastha. Indraprastha took the shape of a beautiful township with an impressive palace. People were happy and loved their king, Yudhishthira. Meanwhile, in order to avoid misunderstanding, they drew up a code of conduct whereby each brother was to enjoy Draupadi's company in complete privacy. If this was interrupted, the violator was to go into exile for a period of a year. Once Arjuna violated this code of conduct accidentally, and due to this reason, Arjuna went into exile for a year. While away, he passed his time in the company of sages, performed religious rituals, and traveled to different places. He married 3 other wives during this time: Ulupi, Chitrangada, and Subhadra, who was Krishna's sister. After completing the exile period, Arjuna returned to Indraprastha with Subhadra. In due course of time, Subhadra gave birth to a lovely son who was named Abhimanyu. And Draupadi gave birth to 5 sons, 1 from each of her husbands. On the way to Hastinapur, Shakuni, who was the brother of Gandhari, along with Duryodhan, made an evil plan. According to the plan, Pandavas would be invited to Hastinapur along with other dignitaries, on a special celebration to exemplify their friendliness, where the top attraction and excitement was the dice game between Yudhishthira and Uncle Shakuni, who was playing on Duryodhan's behalf. Dritarashtra did not comprehend the evil plan of Duryodhan and Shakuni. Yudhishthira accepted the invitation and the Pandavas arrived along with Draupadi. On the day of the royal dice game, the Pandavas along with royal dignitaries arrived and Dritarashtra and his courtiers welcomed them. Shakuni was an extremely good gambler and he knew Yudhishthira's weakness. Carried away by the intoxication of the game, Yudhishthira wagered and lost all his possessions, his lands, his kingdom, his brothers, even himself, and eventually Draupadi, who was dragged before the company by her hair. As Dushashan pulled her sari to disgrace her, Krishna came to rescue her and created an endless supply of cloth around her. Duryodhan then ordered Draupadi to sit on his thigh. Hearing this, Bhima took a vow to drink Dushashan's blood and break Duryodhan's thigh. Draupadi swore that one day she will be avenged. There will be a great war, a war without mercy. At her curse, a jackal howled. Dritarashtra was shaken up. He asked his sons to stop and he apologized to Draupadi for fear of the curse that may befall on the Kauravas. He asked Duryodhan to accept an alternative to release the Pandavas from slavery. The Pandavas and Draupadi are condemned to spend 12 years in exile in the forest, and the 13th year disguised so that no one recognizes them. If their identity is disclosed in the 13th year, they would have to go into exile for another 13 years. The Pandavas faced hard times as they started their exile. Arjuna decided to utilize his time by trying to obtain the celestial bow of Lord Shiva. Later, he obtained the Pashupatastra from Lord Shiva. Now, the Pandavas became worried about the successful ending of the 13th year of exile, which they had to pass unrecognized, mandated by Duryodhan. The Pandavas along with Draupadi went to the kingdom of Virata in disguise. Yudhishthira, disguised as a Brahmin, became one of the king's trusted advisors. Bhima became the chief cook. Arjuna, who had learned the art of dance and music from Kshetrasen at Indralok, became a dance and music teacher for Princess Uttara. Nakula became the royal groomer, and Sahadeva, the royal cowherd. Draupadi became Queen Sudashna's maid. In the meantime, Duryodhan sent his spies to discover Pandavas' hideout and he launched an attack on Virata's kingdom. As the war approached, Yudhishthira offered the services of himself and his family to Virata. All his brothers, except Arjuna, joined the army. The young Prince Uta could not go to the war as there was no charioteer. Arjuna then promptly offered his services and he first took the chariot to the tree where he had hidden his weapons a year ago. Arjuna took charge to face the war. Duryodhan was happy to locate the Pandavas, but realized soon they learned that the 13th year had just been completed. Arjuna single-handedly defeated the army and Duryodhan fled from the battlefield. Yudhishthira explained to Virata the details of the 13th year of exile under his protection and expressed the gratitude. Virata was overwhelmingly happy and agreed to give his daughter Uttara in marriage to Arjuna's son Abhimanyu. Meanwhile, Dritarashtra was asked to return the kingdom of the Pandavas. Dritarashtra called Bhishma, Vida, and the other elders, Duryodhan, and his supporters to discuss. But Duryodhan refused to give even a pinch of land to the Pandavas, and was adamant to be the sole ruler of the Kaurava Empire. He declared that they would be willing to go to war against the Pandavas in order to keep the kingdom. Yudhishthira was a righteous person, and wished to avoid a war, especially against his own relatives. He was also willing to give up some part of the kingdom that originally belonged to him. So, Krishna went to Hastinapur and requested Duryodhan to reconsider his decision. All the elders were on Krishna's side, but Duryodhan did not agree, and even tried to humiliate him. Disappointed Krishna, returned from Hastinapur and delivered the message of war to Yudhishthira, and Kunti's blessing for the Pandavas. Pandavas had no other choice than to declare war against the Kauravas. When Kunti saw that war was imminent, one day, she approached Karna and finally told him the true story of his life, that he was truly one of the Pandavas. Kunti requested Karna not to kill any of his brothers. Karna promised to spare all, except Arjuna. Kunti then blessed Karna and left with fear and grief. Diplomatic efforts to resolve the conflict between the Kauravas and Pandavas failed, leading to the massive war of Kurukshetra. The Kauravas and the Pandavas began to prepare for the battle. Dritarashtra was chosen as the chief of the Pandava army, and Bhishma was chosen to be the commander of the Kaurava army. But Bhishma laid down two conditions. Firstly, he would not personally hurt the Pandavas but kill only their soldiers. And secondly, Karna would not come to the battlefield as long as he will be there. Krishna was also in a similar dilemma. So, when Duryodhan and Arjuna both approached him, he gave them a choice, that he would offer his army to the one and himself to the other side. Duryodhan chose the army, and Arjuna chose Krishna. Thus, on a chosen day, the Kaurava and Pandava armies marched toward Kurukshetra and stood face to face. Karna stayed away from the battlefield as mandated by Bhishma. Yudhishthira, the representative of the Pandava army, came forward and paid respect to his elders, Bhishma, Drona, and the other great warriors. The codes for the war were finalized, and warriors from both camps took their pledges to abide by the code. Krishna became Arjuna's charioteer and counselor. But Arjuna was overwhelmed with grief, as he could not justify killing his beloved relatives, including his grandfather, and his teacher Drona on the other side, in order to win the war. He dropped his weapons, and refused to fight. At that moment, Krishna came forward, and taught him how the righteous path was not always an easy one. He mentioned that man's duty lies in performing the duty, while the results should be left to God. He also told that his relatives were none but individual souls, on their way to the ultimate destination of uniting with the Supreme Lord. This sermon later came to be known as Bhagavad Gita. With Krishna's motivation, Arjuna then picked up his weapon and got ready to fight. Bhishma moved with tremendous force, killing the Pandava soldiers by the thousands. When the Pandavas were about to give up, Krishna came up with a plan. He knew Bhishma's weakness and wanted to take advantage of this. He asked Arjuna to invite Shikhandi to the war as he was a eunuch, and Bhishma had to drop his weapons in front of him. Krishna's plan worked. Arjuna pierced Bhishma's body with thousands of arrows. There was no space on his body thicker than 2 fingers that is not pierced. He fell from his chariot and lay fully supported by the arrows, with no part of his body touching the earth. When Bhishma asked for water to drink, Arjuna shot an arrow into the ground and water gushed out to quench Bhishma's thirst. He remained lying on a bed of arrows until the end of the battle. During the scuffle, Drona killed Drupad, the father of Dritarashtra. Duryodhan returned to his camp, and appointed the next commander-in-chief Karna. Now, the Kaurava army began to march towards the Pandava army with a special circular array, called Chakravya, which nobody knew how to break open, apart from Arjuna. It was like a giant wall advancing and crushing the Pandava soldiers. Arjuna was diverted away from the central battle. Arjuna's son, Abhimanyu, who, by listening to his father while still in his mother's womb, had learned to force an entry. As Arjuna is called to a diversionary battle far away, Yudhishthira entrusts Abhimanyu with the task of opening a breach in the circular array. Abhimanyu succeeded, But when Bhima and Yudhishthira tried to follow him into the opening, they were stopped by Jayadratha, and the breach closed behind the young Abhimanyu. In spite of his bravery, he was tortured to death. Arjuna vowed to kill Jayadratha, the person who had plotted the Chakravyuh, and ultimately beheaded him. Krishna knew that Drona loved his son Ashwathama a lot and would lose his head if he died. So, Krishna made a plan that Yudhishthira would tell a lie that Ashwathama was dead. As Yudhishthira never told a lie, Drona would believe him. When Yudhishthira was hesitant to lie to Drona, Bhima killed an elephant with the same name Ashwathama, and Yudhishthira informed Drona about Ashwathama's death. Hearing this news, Drona dropped his arms, and Drishtadyumna beheaded him. On the other side of the battlefield, Bhima killed Dushashan to fulfill his vow for insulting Draupadi. The next day, Ghatothkacha, Bhima's son, truly shines. No one from the Kauravas' army is able to prevent Ghatothkacha from wreaking havoc. Even Duryodhan was forced to flee. Karna then uses a celestial weapon as a last resort to ultimately kill the powerful demon. This weapon had been bestowed by Lord Indra and could only be used once. Karna had been keeping it in reserve to use against Arjuna. Now, Karna decided to have his final battle with Arjuna. Arjuna was also ready for him. When Karna proceeded towards Arjuna on the battlefield, Yudhishthira came in between and Karna cut his weapons in pieces. He spared Yudhishthira's life as he had promised to Kunti. Karna soon stood face to face with Arjuna. Suddenly Karna's charioteer was killed and one of the chariot's wheels broke down. Karna requested Arjuna to stop fighting while his wheel was fixed. Karna was unarmed, so it was unethical to attack Karna in that situation. But Krishna encouraged Arjuna to take that opportunity to kill Karna. Thus, Karna was killed mercilessly at the hands of his brother Arjuna. The Kaurava army began to flee away from the battlefield. Duryodhan was shocked and felt helpless when he heard of Karna's death. He chose to run away from the battlefield along with his maternal uncle Shakuni. Sahadeva located Shakuni and killed him. Duryodhan was finally located and Bhima challenged him to a mace fight. The fight went on for many hours. Finally, Bhima hits Duryodhan on his thigh in order to win. Thus, Bhima kept his vow of breaking Duryodhan's thigh to punish him for insulting Draupadi by asking her to sit on his lap after that dice game. The war was finally over. Pandavas thanked Krishna for bringing victory to them through his valuable advice. Ashwathama, however, desired revenge. He planned to wipe out the Pandava family. The Pandavas were on their way home after the war. Ashwathama stealthily entered the camp at night, and tried to kill the Pandavas, but accidentally ends up killing all of Draupadi's sons. However, at the end of the war, there was no one left to claim the throne of Hastinapur after the Pandavas, except the unborn baby of Uttara, the son of Abhimanyu. Accompanied by Krishna and Vidur, the Pandavas went to Hastinapur to meet Dritarashtra and Gandhari. Dritarashtra was fully aware of the happenings of the war through Sanjay. Sanjay was blessed with the power of watching the war from a distance and narrated it to blind Dritarashtra as it happened. Gandhari and Dritarashtra were mad at Bhima for killing their sons, Duryodhan and Dushashan. All of them then visited Bhishma, who was still resting, waiting for his departure from the earth. Bhishma blessed the Pandavas, and then his soul left for heaven. Dritarashtra, Gandhari, Kunti, and Vidur left for the forest to spend the rest of their life in meditation and prayers. Unfortunately, they all died in a forest. With Yudhishthira as the king, the Pandavas rule the kingdom with justice and compassion. They performed the Ashwamedha Yagya to establish their dominion. As time rolled on, Uttara, wife of Abhimanyu, gave birth to Parikshit. He was the only heir left of Pandavas, as Ashwatthama had failed in killing him when he was in his mother's womb. The Pandavas decided to crown the young prince Parikshit and retire to the Himalayas. They threw their weapons into the river and started for their endless journey to the top of the Himalayas, along with Draupadi. They were surprised to see a dog accompanying them. But, as they climbed up the mountain, one by one, the Pandavas and Draupadi died on their journey, leaving only Yudhishthira and the dog. Yudhishthira reached the gates of heaven but is told that he couldn't enter with the dog. Yudhishthira refused to enter without his loyal companion, and it is then revealed that the dog was the god Dharma in disguise, testing Yudhishthira's steadfastness. Pleased with his devotion, Dharma granted Yudhishthira entrance to heaven. After reaching heaven, Yama, the lord of death and justice, showed him around, and Yudhishthira notices that Duryodhan and other Kauravas were present in heaven. He was enraged and questioned the gods. Yama explained that the Kauravas had paid for their sins with their blood on the battlefield, and that there should be no enmity in the afterlife. When he inquired about his brothers, and Draupadi, he was told that Pandavas and Draupadi were in hell, Pandavas because of their pride, and Draupadi because of her partiality towards Arjuna. Thus ends the great epic story, Mahabharata. Thank you, friends. Hope you have enjoyed the epic story of Mahabharata in this audiobook. Do not forget to comment, share, like and subscribe to www.youtube.com/@weaversnest. Also, visit our website, www.weaversnest.org.